This month's Patreon raffle review comes courtesy of Platinum Base. Thank you very much, Platinum Base! And if you too would like your idea for a Media Mementos video to come to life, check out the link to our Patreon in the description below. Titan AE. What else can you say? Whenever you look this movie up on YouTube, you'll find one of two things. You'll find somebody saying, "It's actually pretty good, guys, why not give it a shot?" Which, yeah, they're right. Or you'll hear somebody talk about how this movie's failure was so catastrophic that it single-handedly destroyed Fox's animation studio, and no, that's not right. Believe it or not, there's more to the Titan AE legend that BuzzFeed articles and the like would have you believe. So here we go, folks. It's time to go over the complete history of Titan AE. Our story starts in early 1997, where Fox Animation greenlights a movie that, at the time, was called Planet Ice. Planet Ice was originally envisioned to be a live-action sci-fi epic, but Fox wasn't really feeling it, and instead, they wanted to have a cutting-edge CG feature. Don't forget, this is right around the time where Pixar was starting to make it big. Studios were starting to take notice. And of course, Fox being as calculating as they are, they wanted to get in on this action, and what better way to do it than by cornering a market that, up until this point, hadn't really been explored. The mainstream animated movies were all things like fantasies, or fairy tales, or musicals in general. The two genres this field seemed to lack were science fiction and action, so combine them together, and you get Planet Ice. The script took a while to rework since they had to go line by line and ask themselves, would this work in an animated feature? How would this scene translate from one medium to another? Kind of the reverse of what Disney's doing nowadays, am I right?
Dude, Pride rock!
Once the script was done, Art Vitella was brought on to direct the film, but due to some creative differences, he didn't last all that long. Even though the movie was now without a director, Fox was hyping this thing up as much as they could. They were telling anyone who would listen, and maybe even some people who wouldn't, that this new movie, now called Titan AE, would feature some amazing special effects, revolutionary animation, and truly jaw-dropping action sequences. The only problem was, they didn't really have somebody to help pull it together. So Fox decided to reach out to another studio for help, and this just so happened to be Blue Sky Studios. Blue Sky was also about to pitch Ice Age around this time, by the way. Whether this is because of Blue Sky's technical prowess, or because Fox Animation really needed to get this project moving, that remains to be seen. However, around this time, the first round of layoffs at Fox started to roll out. Yes, contrary to popular belief, Fox wasn't doing all that well even before Titan AE began production. Despite Fox being a household name, their animation company was relatively new. In fact, the only products they made had Don Bluth attached. They were Anastasia, Bartok the Magnificent, and, well, Titan AE, of course. Anastasia was a big hit and all, but that alone was not enough to keep Fox Animation up and running. Bartok the Magnificent, while a charming film on its own right, was not a commercial success.
This isn't a life for me.
This is largely in part due to the fact that this was a direct-to-video release, instead of something being released to theaters. Which is actually not what Fox wanted. It was only because of Bluth and Goldman that the film wasn't released in theaters. Because of that, Fox Animation lost out on a major source of revenue. The reason Bartok the Magnificent was greenlit at all was because audiences loved that little bat. Therefore, if they saw him in an all-new feature-length movie, they would flock to the theaters in droves.
Bartok the Magnificent, the specifically, terrifically magnificent. I tell ya, B-A-R-T.
But since that didn't happen, their next movie had the job of saving the studio. If this didn't save the company, nothing would. This tight deadline meant that everything had to be done as soon as possible, no questions asked. And with CGI being a new and finicky technology at the time, Fox didn't have much time to wait. So they decided to take the project away from Blue Sky and give it to somebody they knew they could trust, Don Bluth.
If it's done right, that's the key. And it'll make you fly.
I knew you could handle this old bird.
Right on target.
He and Gary Goldman were happy to take over the project because they hadn't done anything like this before. Granted, Bluth had many dark and surreal pictures, but nothing quite like this. Now, at first, it seemed like a good idea to bring Don Bluth on. After all, he did head Anastasia not too long ago, and that turned some heads. But aside from Anastasia, Don Bluth hadn't had a box office success since The Land Before Time. The last movie that managed to turn a profit was All Dogs Go to Heaven, and that's only because it was a big hit on home video. Other than that, it was bomb after bomb after bomb. Not to say that these movies aren't great, I do like Rockadoodle, at least. All I'm trying to say is that this was an omen for things to come. With Bluth now in charge, he transferred the animation from Blue Sky over to Fox's animation studio in Phoenix.
Tonight we get our first peek inside the new Fox animation studio right here in the Valley, where Phoenix is jumping into the movie business head first.
And as Maricopa County native and former channel owner Billy H.L. would tell me, at the time, the fact that a major animated film was being made in Phoenix was a major deal to locals. Not like they'd actually go to see it, but still, they were excited. Bluth and company only had 19 months to get this movie done. And since Don Bluth was now in charge, this was going to go from a fully CG feature to a half CG, half 2D hybrid sort of thing. 2D animation would be used for the main characters, while CGI would be for things like the gadgets or the backgrounds or enhancing some effects. That way, Fox would be able to get this movie done on time with the signature Bluth style, but at the same time, they'd still be able to hype up the visual effects. Fox became so excited with the prospect of having more of these effects that they kept demanding that Bluth add more and more of them into the final product. All this served to do was make the film take even longer to make, and also increase the cost dramatically. At the time Bluth got a hold of things, it was a fairly economic feature, but now, it was way too expensive. Even so, Bluth and Goldman were good sports and decided to keep on trucking. They were able to get folks like Matt Damon, Nathan Lane, Bill Pullman, Ron Perlman, and Janine Garofalo to join the cast. From the sounds of it, they all had a great time, even if it did seem to push them a little bit out of their comfort zone. The recording sessions for Titan AE consisted a lot of grunts and oofs and action sounds, and most of the cast wasn't used to just standing in a booth and letting those noises out without moving their body.
You can't feel too embarrassed at how it looks, because it's got to sound right, you know?
But hey, at the end of the day, they were proud of their work, so why complain? Once the recording was done, it was on to the animation, and quickly. In order to get everything just right, there were several bits of live-action references used for the animatics and the animation. During these sessions, the cast would use props that were repurposed home goods or hardware equipment to be things like jetpacks or ray guns. It looks a little weird when you see the raw footage, but to be fair, the audience wouldn't really see that now, would they? This was a very difficult film to complete. Bluth and Goldman both have said that the action sequences had to be perfectly on point. Otherwise, the main focus of the movie wouldn't land. And since these action sequences were both numerous and highly detailed, this had to be where most of their focus went. But the hardest part was not getting the animation done on time, not making sure that the action sequences were fun and exciting. No, it was that Fox was constantly laying off people all throughout production. Their studio kept getting smaller, then smaller again, and smaller still, until they were working with a crew of only 66 people. Which means that this movie went from a difficult task to just about impossible. How could you get a movie like this done with only 66 people? Well, I can tell you how not to do it, by telling the remaining 66 people that they're gonna be fired as soon as the movie was done. Yep. Fox decided to pull their plug on the Phoenix Animation Studio, meaning that regardless if Titan AE was a hit or a bomb, the people working on it would be out of a job. It's not like Fox was doing this out of maliciousness, though. They were hemorrhaging money. They had no other choice. And to their credit, the people working on Titan AE were good sports. Even though they knew they were about to be laid off, they still gave 110% to make sure that this movie was done and done right. Even when it came time for the reshoots and rewrites. See, Titan AE had a certain demographic in mind, specifically tween to teenage boys. But then when they saw that young women were just as, if not more, invested in the test screenings, the crew decided to add some more love scenes and dialogue moments in order to cater to that demographic as well. By the time Titan AE wrapped up production, it had a budget of anywhere from $75 to $90 million. So this thing had to be big. If not, well then, nice knowing you, Fox Animation. Been a good run. If not a very short one. And as you've all expected, when Titan AE first came out, it was a colossal failure, earning only about $20 million domestically, and in foreign markets, it didn't fare much better. It earned about only $37 million, and that's only by rounding up. And don't forget, that budget didn't include things like promotion either, so odds are, Titan AE could have cost about $100 or $110 million. This movie didn't have a strong opening either. It wasn't like it started off really strongly and then just fell off right away. No, it opened up at 5th place and continued to slide. Within days of Titan AE's premiere, Fox Animation shut down. There was one last round of layoffs before they decided to call it quits entirely, and officially shuttering the doors of Fox Animation. In the time between the release of Titan AE and the studio shutting down, Gary Goldman reported that they had numerous ideas that they were going to pitch to Fox for their next feature. If Titan AE was at least able to keep them afloat just a little bit, they would be able to produce one more movie and maybe that could save the studio. But of course, largely due to the mediocre critical reception and ridiculous budget, Titan AE just couldn't do its task. It was a Hail Mary that didn't work out. As of 2023, it's the final film to be made by Don Bluth. For a while, there was talks of a Dragon's Lair movie or TV series being made, but that's been in production limbo since the early 2000s, so who knows if that's ever gonna come out. I'm not sure if the failure of Titan AE is what caused Don Bluth to pull back. I would assume it's most certainly a factor, but this just goes to show that the internet doesn't really have the story straight. It wasn't always Don Bluth's movie. He was brought on due to his successful work on Anastasia to help save Fox Animation. The movie being mediocre or whatever wasn't the sole reason it bombed. It was also because Fox kept shooting themselves in the foot again and again. Even though they knew they were running on a shoestring budget, they wanted Titan AE to be bigger and grander and more commercially viable. So they did things that, frankly, they just didn't have the capacity to do. Reshoots, more CG, crazier action scenes. This is all good in the final product, but in terms of a company that's barely staying alive, it wasn't the right move to take. With that being said, if there's any aspiring filmmakers or animators out there, please learn from the tale of Titan AE. Sometimes, you gotta make it simple. Otherwise, you could have a ripple effect with disastrous results, leaving nothing but destruction and misery in its wake, until years later a cult following would be able to dust your product off and appreciate it for what it is, but not every movie gets that, you know? So please, whatever you do, don't end up like Titan AE. Well folks, thanks for watching the video. What'd you guys think? What did you learn about the story of Titan AE, and what do you think of the movie overall? Comment below and let me know, because I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. And now it's time to thank our wonderful Patreon people, starting with our Masters of Fate: Chan 11, Drew the Stew, Kev Messick, Platinum Bass, Quiet Chap, Ryan Williams, Timey, and Woody Woo. And now our executive producers: Albert Robinson, Blackjack, H.R. Huffman, Indiscreet One, Leaf Storm, Orsinus, Ravioli Supremo, Unkale, and who else but Zane. If you too would like your name read at the end of every Media Mementos video, then why not consider donating to the Patreon? There's a fancy little link in the description below for you to check out. And if you want to get more involved in the Media Mementos fan community, down there we've also got a link to the Media Mementos Discord server, so stop on by and say hello. Alright folks, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time.